All right, everybody, welcome back to the Millennial Sales Podcast. This is your host, Tommy Tahoe Alemo, episode 246. Stoked to be with you here. This is the show where young salespeople go to get better at their careers, make more money, advance in a sales career, get the next job, whatever it might be. We're here. We're on the path. Excited for this Monday, last week of the month. For some of you, it's the last week of the quarter. So God bless everyone that's on the Salesforce calendar that's getting after it. I hope the sales gods are with you. Today, I've got a great guest, Daniel Huang. He is a mid-market AE over at HubSpot. We met through the powers of LinkedIn. And, Daniel was formerly a rep at KeepTruckin and Demandforce. He's an avid home cook and a self-proclaimed former mediocre powerlifter. But what we really talk about in this episode is Daniel's search for his dream job, which he landed at HubSpot recently, and how he did that. He was very methodical and strategic in how he built out his network and how he was aggressive. And it's just a great story. I'm super happy for him that he mapped that out. And so for anyone that is going through a similar journey of trying to find the right company, trying to find the right job, maybe they're not happy where they're at, maybe they're open to exploring, whatever it is, I think that Daniel is going to make an impact on you. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. Before we get to Daniel, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Postal.io. Postal is a curated experience marketing platform that helps you cut through the noise. Basically, they help you customize gifts and things that you send to customers or partners or prospects. And I think it's never been more important than now, where we're not really seeing people in person. It's a great way to break the ice virtually. And we're going to be putting together some cool events and packages and stuff the second half of the year. Until then, you can go to postal.io and learn more about them. Hit me up. LinkedIn is probably the best place, Tom Alemo, but I'm on Twitter and Instagram every day, Tommy Tahoe. Would love to connect with you there on a more personal level. And make sure that you're subscribed and leaving reviews here on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're tuning in. That's what helps this show grow. Get off my soapbox. Let's get you to my conversation with Daniel. It's Monday. Let's get after it. Let's go. All right, Daniel Huang, good evening. Welcome to Millennial Sales. How are you?
Tom, stoked to be here, man. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. We got the, what is it? The home cooker, the personal finance ninja, and the formerly mediocre amateur power lifter in the room here. Very excited to be chopping it up with you.
Flattered. There is no such thing as a professional powerlifter. So I think everyone is a powerlifter is amateur.
Is that true though? Like Olympians?
Yes, they're amateur as well, but weightlifting, specifically Olympic weightlifting, is actually an entirely separate sport. It's a sport that athletic people actually do. Powerlifting is slow lifting, and it's what all the unathletic people do. That's what I used to do. I don't even do that anymore. Okay. Now I'm just a normal.
Yeah, I got you. Well, first and foremost, your rep and rep view right now. We were just riffing on them a little bit. You got a lot of love for RepView. So let's start there. What's the shirt all about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the shirt is super soft. Ryan Walsh, great job. It's super soft. It's cut very well. It fits me perfectly. But I'm probably going to butcher the pitch here. So don't kill me, Ryan, but it's a website that's out in the internet. And I definitely recommend you guys check them out. Repvue.com, REPVUE. And they're essentially like everything Glassdoor wants to be, but made by salespeople for salespeople. So it's all data points that are gathered from people who actually work at the companies that they're reporting on, because they're registering with their work email, but all the data is anonymized, and you're going to get deep salary insights, base, OTE, top performer earnings. I think they even have like broken down by SDR, by AE role for 400 of the top sales orgs in the US right now. And you can go in, it's free. You do have to sign up. Again, all the data is submitted by people who have work email addresses registered. And so you can get in there and you can see all that stuff, and you'll know that right even before you start interviewing and get yourself into that process, looking for a job.
That's about the closest thing to a free ad that has ever occurred on this podcast. Rep for you, I'm coming for you for a sponsorship.
You're welcome, Ryan.
After this, he owes you another shirt. I'm
still waiting for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely check them out. And congrats on the new role you just landed. As of today, I think today's day 3 over at HubSpot.
Yeah, today is day 3. And I learned a really neat phrase from my new boss. He taught me this phrase, drinking from the fire hose. Yeah. So when he shot that over to me from a text message, I never saw it before. And I Googled it and I've been using it every day. It certainly feels like I'm drinking from a fire hose right now. But yeah, super stoked for my new gig at HubSpot, day 3 today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like the interview process was arduous. It was maybe you took a different, sounds like you were pretty strategic, but you also just really kind of plunged all in. So I'd love to start there and just learn a little bit about, while you were looking for the HubSpot gig and kind of searching around for your next opportunity, what that process was like.
Yeah, totally, Tom. So the HubSpot interview process itself was very straightforward. This is nothing to do with HubSpot. It's everything to do with Daniel Huang and how Daniel Huang approaches interviewing, right? So big shout out to all the managers that interviewed with me at HubSpot. You guys are awesome. And I had a great interview process. So that wasn't it. The reason why it was arduous and what we were riffing on early before we started recording is I went all in on my side, where I essentially eliminated all semblance of work-life balance. And I just dedicated myself fully to LinkedIn, essentially, and putting myself out there and coming out from the shadows of being a lurker and just giving every fiber of my being to building my brand online so I can get someone like HubSpot to notice me and help my journey through the interview process that way. So I think it was actually mid-March where I emerged from the shadows, so to speak, and put up my first crappy post that got no engagement and no viewership at all. And it was terrible. I think it was even a reshare. So it got even worse engagement. And then, 2.5, 3 months later, here I am. Right. And like along the way, I picked up a job interview with HubSpot, which just happens to be one of the coolest companies in the world. And it happens to be a company I admire, and it happens to be my dream job. So, I couldn't be more thankful.
So when you were talking about, building a brand and wanting to do that to kind of stand out in the interview process, which by the way, is a very smart strategy. What were some of the steps that you took outside of just, I guess posting?
Well, I think I was actually very fortunate in my timing. You know how LinkedIn now has that 100 connection invite limit per week? That's imposed on everybody.
I've heard that. I don't know. I haven't tested that myself, but I've heard that, or I've seen other people post about it.
Yeah. So I actually go up against that limit every week now. Okay. But when I first started, there was no limit. So I started around 900 followers and connections, right around that number. And when I first started going into it, I essentially just wanted to build up my feed, meaning I wanted to get more content that I like to consume myself as a sales professional so I can up-level my own abilities and learn as much as I could. So what I started doing was just liking anything I liked, commenting on anything that I liked, and then adding the person who posted that post to my connections. And I would just send everybody a blank connection request, because according to James Say What Sales Buckley, that's the way to do it, right? So I just sent blank connection requests to everybody. Most people ignored me. The people who accepted became part of my network. And I just kept going. It was just, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on your podcast, balls to the wall every single day.
Say whatever you want.
All right, I went balls to the wall, Tom. And yeah, it was just every day building my feed, me consuming, me learning. But also what I started doing as well is I started sending this recorded memoji of myself, and it was templated. So I tried to make it sound not templated. I think I might have even sent one to you, but maybe I didn't. But
is that what that's called? A memoji?
Did I send one to you?
You did.
Yes.
I didn't know that had a name yet. I've never even seen that before.
So here's the cool thing. It's actually a stock feature on iPhone. You don't have to download anything. You can just use the Memoji feature, and essentially it's a talking head. It's a Memoji, but it's animated and you can record yourself. So I recorded a 7-second clip of myself saying, "Hey, thanks for connecting. Nice to meet you. Cheers." But I sent that to every single person I connected with, and I sent it to probably 1,500 people before I stopped. But in the early days, I sent it to every single person. And then people who responded, I would have a conversation with every single person on LinkedIn, no matter who it was. And I just wanted to do it because I wanted to put myself out there. I had never even networked before in my entire career. I was always very passive. And this was just my way of making up for lost time and seeing what happened when I had no agenda. Like I didn't even know who some of these people were. I wasn't trying to get a job. I was just trying to talk to them. I was trying to build rapport. I was trying to practice my small talk. Right. And then what do you know? Obviously, what happened is that now I met maybe 25 people who I have very deep connections with, even though we've never met in person. And it's sort of crazy to think that I didn't know any of them 3 months ago. So it's been a wild ride for sure. And it helps that I got a job along the way. But yeah, it's been crazy, man.
It is. It's hard to describe, but I did, I was on the job hunt about a year ago. I left a job that I was at for about 5 years and left the job without lining something up, which I wouldn't advise right during the beginning of a global pandemic, but that's what happened. And so I did the same thing. I was just adding a ton of people and connecting and joining these webinars and all this stuff. And I have made some truly great friends on LinkedIn that, we text all, quite frequently. We'll hop on Zooms every few weeks, all this stuff. And, I haven't met most of them. I did this like 10-thing webinar series with Richard Harris. I've never met the guy, but he's like a good friend of mine now. And it's just so interesting and really amazing how you can connect, and the internet makes things so much smaller. So I love that you did that. Did that spur an interview with any companies or with HubSpot? Like, was that part of the conversation, like them mentioning your personal brand? Or if you want to speak about just in general, not HubSpot in particular, were companies, intrigued by that as part of the interview process?
Absolutely. 100,000%. And I don't think HubSpot will get me in trouble for saying this, but that's how my opportunity with HubSpot came about. I actually saw one of their managers make a post on LinkedIn about how to interview better. So his advice was about, if you're interviewing, especially with him, but just in general, ask clarifying questions, show that you're interested in digging deeper. And coincidentally, that's actually a great trait for a salesperson to have. If you're in a sales interview, you should be digging deeper into your interviewer's answers to your own questions, right? And so at the fear of liking the post and having my current employer at the time see it, I actually did not like it, but I added him blank connection request saying, "James, say what sales Buckley style," and he accepted. I sent him the Memoji, the templated 7-second Memoji, and his response was, "Hey, I'm sure you saw my post, but are you by chance interested in HubSpot?" That was the gist. And I said, "Let me think about it." 20 seconds later, when do you want to talk? Tuesday or Wednesday? Right. And so it was just such a no-brainer. And that's all she wrote, man. And here I am, day 3, HubSpot, mid-market AE, dream job. It's crazy.
So people talk all the time about, what's the ROI of building the brand? Like, why would I do that? Why would I spend the time? And there it is right there. It's right there that, I won't even get into comp. I won't even get into,
you don't need to. Yeah.
Where
RepView.
you are. Yeah.
We don't need to talk about it. Just go to RepView. You can find all the comp information there. You'll see exactly how much money I make.
All right. Well, I'm going to check that out after the show, and I'll let everyone else know, hey, this is how much Daniel's pulling in. But seriously, you just landed the job at, a dream company, a great job for you, that, not to say that you wouldn't have gotten the job without it, but you wouldn't have had an easy conversation queued up for you with a manager there that easily if you weren't putting in the work there. It just really, lessened the work that you had to put in, like probably throughout the interview process? Because to even get a first interview is probably really hard there.
I wouldn't know, honestly, but I would like to think that all this effort had a lot to do with my ability to get through the interview process. It actually allowed me to structure my answers around all this effort I put into my social media presence and brand building.
Yeah.
So that was actually, in fact, the answer to a lot of the interview questions I had to answer.
Yeah.
And then I will say that I do also get a lot of those questions that you just talked about, Tom, about what is the ROI? What is the value of spending 3, 4, sometimes ungodly number of hours on LinkedIn every day outside of your normal job? Why are you doing that, Daniel? Isn't that crazy? Don't you have something else to do? And I said, you know what? What's the alternative? I could just do nothing. And then I'll just be sitting back and complaining about my current situation like everybody else is, who's also doing nothing. So either I dedicate myself to something that I really, really want for a short period of time and think of it as a sprint and I can rest later, or I could just be like everybody else and not be differentiated from the crowd. So to me, that was a very easy decision.
I admire the shit out of that. That's a great move. And you mentioned that you kind of laid it all out there during the job process too, of just like, you went all in, right? Like you put a ton of time and effort and energy and kind of like, drained the tank doing that. And I think that's also a very normal thing that we go through ebbs and flows, right? And just like I hate to be like the salesperson that like always uses the sports analogy, but it's like it is like in a sports season, where it's like, hey, you might peak a couple times a year. Like I was a tennis player, right? There's 4 Grand Slams. You peak 4 times a year. And so you peak at certain times, then you got to like chill a little bit. You got to fill up the tank and do things that you like to do and all that. So sounds like you're in the midst of kind of refilling the tank, so to speak.
Yeah. And I'm always down for meathead analogies, right? In meathead world, it's called periodization. It's where you accumulate fatigue and volume and then you peak in a certain season, right? And so like if you think about football, they're in peak physical condition for 4 months a year, right? Then they take a couple of months off because they wreck their bodies and run into brick walls for 4 months. And then they spend the rest of the offseason building back up for the next season. And then they go balls to the wall again for 4 months. So that was the same way for me as a powerlifter back when I used to compete. And for my job search, that was the same way I approached it too. I just knew that there was going to be a point where I had to peak, which was my final panel interview with HubSpot. And that was going to be the day where I had to show up, be at my best and perform. And I would give everything to that day. I even wrote a post about it where that was one of the biggest days of my life. I even talked about it during the interview, but it was true. And it definitely helps to have a great support system like my wife. She just completely understood what I was doing. And so no questions. I just was able to do that with her full support. So I love you, Glenda. And that was the day, man. And then after that, I was like, I cried a little bit and I was like, wow, like I just did that. And then I got the job offer that day. Right. So, it was all worth it in the end. And now I can look back and be like, wow, I can't believe I did that. I was a crazy person for 5 weeks. I was just insane, and it's almost like I can't believe myself that I did that. But I think for anything that's worthwhile and you put your heart and soul into it, I think that's how we always feel.
Absolutely. And it's worth it. It's worth it on the other side. When you got that offer letter, man, you must have just been so excited.
I couldn't wait, man. I was like, do I really have to wait until tomorrow to get this offer letter? I was trying not to screw it up, but once I got the verbal, I was so ecstatic. I was over the moon.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, congrats again. I think the takeaway that I'm getting from this is like, I think there's no bad time to build your brand because you never know when you're going to need it. You may not control the next time you need a job, right? Anyone out there, it may not be up to you depending on how things go in your career. And so it's always good to kind of plan that out ahead. I love the strategic nature that you took. I love going in ebbs and flows. Anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
Tons. but we're not the Joe Rogan podcast here, so no 2.5 hour long episodes. I do have his headset though, but besides that, No, I think this is a good stopping point, and I'm happy to come back for another episode if you'll have me.
Yeah. Once you win Rep of the Year at HubSpot, we'll get you on.
That's a tough competition. There's some killer reps there.
Oh,
Carl
sure.
Ferreira, I'm looking at you. So I don't think I can touch Carl for at least a little while.
Carl, we're coming for you. Just kidding, Carl. I have no idea who you are. Daniel, I appreciate you coming on. If anyone wants to connect with you to learn more about building a brand, if they want to learn more about interviewing, actually, before we do that, I got one more question for you. You seem like a well learned person, and we're big readers, we're big listeners, we're big learners on this podcast. I'm just curious, like any topic, are there any books, like podcasts, people you follow on YouTube, anything like that that has been particularly helpful for you or impactful for you in your life?
Absolutely. Biggest one, Millennial Sales by Tom Alemo. Listen to that.
Let's go.
Yeah, listen to that. I'll do a shout out for Improvise, Adapt, Overcome by Matt Providence and Neville Rankin. It's a brand new podcast, and so they're awesome dudes. Check them out. They're all about breaking into tech sales, and so great podcast. Since we're talking about career a lot today and interviewing, I would say Designing Your Life, which is a book by Bill Burnett out of Stanford. That's been a very instrumental book for me. It's actually one of those very few rare books that I've reread multiple times. And coincidentally, I happen to just reread it every time I'm in the midst of a job search. So every 2 years, I read that book. So I've had it for 6 years. I've read it 3 times. Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett, I'd highly recommend if you're listening to this episode and if any of this content resonates with you.
I love it. All right. Now, the best place has to be LinkedIn, I'm sure, but where can people chat with you if they want to connect, get to know you a little bit, or just want a meme-moji? Is that what it's called?
I've retired the memoji. It's
memoji.
It's no longer part of my LinkedIn connection repertoire.
Okay.
But if you want to connect, LinkedIn is the place to find me. I do have creator mode on, so you can click follow right on my profile page. But definitely send me a connection request as well, because like I was saying earlier, I run out of connection requests all the time, so I can't connect with you, but you can connect with me. And so definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat. I love taking phone calls, especially the ones of the hour-and-a-half long nature. So I'm always game to take offline phone calls as well.
Awesome, Daniel. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and go out there and do your thing at HubSpot, man.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Tom. It's an honor.
Appreciate it. What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out that podcast. Happy July to you. Would love if you took 22 seconds and hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, your favorite podcast player. And be sure to check out some of my content on LinkedIn. I'm Tom Alemo. And on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Tommy Tahoe. Have a great day. Make it legendary. Peace.